Now, as Michael just mentioned, Rupert Murdoch has faced the British parliamentary inquiry into the News of the World phone hacking scandal. He insisted that he was not responsible for what happened, blaming those that he trusted to run his newspapers. On a day of high political drama, the proceedings were interrupted as a demonstrator tried to attack Mr Murdoch as he and his son James answered questions. The BBC's Robert Peston reports.
Get back! Make space!
The moment when two of the world's most powerful media moguls, Rupert Murdoch and his son James Murdoch, arrived to be held to account by MPs for the way that their News of the World Sunday tabloid systematically invaded the privacy of vulnerable individuals.
Mr Murdoch, do you have anything you want to say to the victims of phone hacking?
So, after decades wielding huge power at the top of the British and global media industry, how was it for the 80-year-old Rupert Murdoch?
I would just like to say one sentence. This is the most humble day of my life.
This is Fleet Street reporting on rottenness at the heart of Fleet Street. The media directing a lens at the UK's biggest UK newspaper company. There's never been anything quite like it. So what did the Murdochs know about the alleged abuses at the News of the World? Well, watched by his wife Wendy Deng, who's in the chair behind, not as much as you might think, said Rupert Murdoch.
If I can just say something, and this is not as an excuse, maybe it's an explanation of my laxity. The News of the World is less than 1% of our company. I employ 53,000 people around the world who are proud and great and ethical and distinguished people, professionals in their life, and perhaps I'm spread watching and appointing people whom I trust.
The revelation only 15 days ago of the alleged hacking of the mobile phone of Millie Dowler at the instigation of the News of the World is why the Murdochs face the humiliation of having to explain themselves.
Mr Murdoch, at what point did you find out that criminality was endemic at News of the World?
Endemic is a very wide-ranging word, and I also had to be extremely careful not to prejudice the course of justice which is taking place now. That has been disclosed. I became aware as it became apparent. The first two, and then I was absolutely shocked, appalled and ashamed when I heard about the Millie Dowler case only 2 weeks ago.
But was there a cover-up, given that most of the alleged phone hacking and illegal bribing of police happened between 2002 and 2006? James Murdoch, who became chief executive of News International at the end of 2007, says that he wasn't made aware of the contents of News of the World emails uncovered earlier that year.
If I knew then what we know now, and with the benefit of hindsight, we can look at all these things, but if I knew then what we know now, we would have taken more action around that and moved faster to get to the bottom of these allegations.
James Murdoch said he relied on advice from the lawyers Harbottle and Lewis that the extent of malpractice at the News of the World was limited.
One of the things that went back and looked at, I suppose it was in the spring, by senior people at News International, was that file, and it was re-looked at, it was opened up and looked at, and it was very rapidly brought to our attention that this was something that
When did this happen? When was this looked at?
It was, again, this is between May and, this is sort of April, May, June, in that period.
When was it given to the police? It's been reported as June the 20th.
I believe it was in June, after we informed the board of the company as well.
What some will see as shocking was the confirmation by the Murdochs that their company was still paying the legal expenses of Glenn Mulcair, the private detective hired by the News of the World to illegally hack the phones of individuals long after Mr Mulcair was imprisoned.
Has it got time for your organisation to say, do your worst, you behave disgracefully, we're not going to pay any more of your costs?
I would like to do that. I don't know the status of what we're doing, or indeed what his contract was.
What of the friends in high places of Mr Murdoch, for long seen as the maker and breaker of British Prime Ministers?
I was invited within days to have a cup of tea to be thanked for the support by Mr Cameron. No other conversation took place.
From high drama to the circus, a custard pie in the face of a shaken tycoon.
Mr Murdoch, have you considered resigning?
No.
Why not?
Because I feel that people I trusted, I'm not saying who, I don't know what level, let me down, and I think they behaved disgracefully and betrayed the company and me, and it's for them to pay. I think that, frankly, I'm the best person to clean this up.
These things being...
Many questions are still unanswered about who committed the appalling acts at the News of the World and who knew what when. The Murdochs will probably be seen to have emerged bruised but not broken by today's ordeal. Now they'll have to wait, perhaps for months, even years, for the results of investigations by a judge and by the police.
A report from the BBC. Let's get some more reaction from the UK now. Lance Price is a journalist and he was previously a communications advisor to the British Labour Party.
He famously said Rupert Murdoch was like a 24th member of Tony Blair's cabinet. Europe correspondent Philip Williams spoke to him for his take on the committee hearing.
Well, Lance Price, what's your assessment of the evidence you've heard so far?
Well, it was an extraordinary afternoon, and the real theatre was seeing Rupert Murdoch and his son there giving evidence finally. Of course, Rupert Murdoch a lot more frail than I think people thought he was going to be. At the beginning, he didn't seem to be following the questions very clearly, and it was pretty obvious that he hadn't been told, assuming that he was telling the truth, and we have to take him at face value on that, he hadn't been told about a lot of the things that was going on inside his organisation. Even though we know that he has a great affection for his British newspapers, it does seem that there was a lot going on that he wasn't aware of.
One element I think did surprise people, and that was the revelation that both Mulcair and possibly Goodman's legal bills, are still being paid 4 years after the event.
Yes, and some people have likened it, I think maybe they've gone a bit over the top, but likened this scandal and called it the British Watergate. And of course in Watergate it was the cover-up that did fool them. And it may well be, when it comes to News Corporation, that it is the cover-up that does fool them, and the efforts that they made to try to suppress the evidence coming out, and in the case of these two men, help with their defence. It was clear, because they had very, very expensive briefs, barristers working for them, they couldn't possibly have been paying for it themselves. Everyone suspected it was News International, now we know that it was.
In not too many hours, the focus is going to shift to the Prime Minister and more murky links to him and to his office. How do you think that's going to play for him?
Well, it's lapping around the Prime Minister's ankles at the moment. It isn't a fully fledged scandal. The scandal is the media, the scandal is the police. But his judgment has undoubtedly been called into question. He's had a very, very uncomfortable couple of weeks. He's going to have some very difficult questions to answer. From his own personal point of view, he can breathe a bit of a sigh of relief. He has to go before the House of Commons tomorrow to make a statement about it all, and there'll be questions after that. But then we have the parliamentary recess. And he's got to hope that by the time he comes back after that long summer holiday, that the inquiry will be up and running, or almost up and running. The attention of the public will have shifted elsewhere.
And unless there are more bombs, and we've just got to expect them every day. We've got shocks coming left, right and centre.
There's been a bombshell almost more than one a day, actually, over the past week or 10 days, and I'm sure that's going to continue. But so far, they haven't really been political bombshells. They haven't really touched the politicians. They've touched the politicians in the round, if you like. We now know that they had a far too cosy relationship with the media. But in terms of it actually getting directly at the Prime Minister, a lot of Labour MPs wish that it had, but it hasn't got there yet.
Lance Price, thanks very much.